The currency market is a very complex and elaborate environment. Most people out there, if asked about this market, will either give a reaction of concern or fear. Most of this presumed anxiety comes down to two things. One, inadequate knowledge of the market and the economy, and two, assumed risk taken by others who have traded and found themselves unsuccessful.
Both of these reactions have everything to do with a person's lack of knowledge or experience with the market. Economics might not be everyone's best subject in school. So much is unknown to people, or as stated earlier, it is too complex. However, economics can be very easy to understand in the currency trading world.
Most people have heard of a concept called supply and demand. This concept can be very simple and can even be taught to children, yet it's one of the most important concepts in the world. In fact, we would probably argue that it is the most important concept to understand, at least from a fiscal sense.
Supply and demand works like this. The world has limited resources. Things like gold, silver, oil, food, cars, houses, and currency. These limited resources are distributed throughout the world, and because they are classified as limited, they cannot be shared with unlimited abundance. Countries, corporations, and individuals work very hard to have claim over these limited resources. As these organizations work to obtain more resources, oftentimes it's necessary that trade and commerce take place to grow. This is where supply and demand comes in.
Let's say, for example, that Japan is really good at making cars, but they struggle to produce food for their large population due to their very mountainous region and landscape. We know that Japan makes more cars than it produces in food, and this would make for an easy assumption that Japan has a high supply of cars and a lower supply of food. Now, if Japan could trade some of their high supply of cars at a profit to another country, who could then produce food and agriculture to them, this would make for a really great trade.
Fortunately for Japan, the United States is the #1 exporter of agriculture to Japan, and Japan is the #1 exporter of cars to the United States. The United States has Great Plains and larger land masses where crops are sprung each year. Many of the harvests in the United States are sold to Japan for a profit. Each country has a comparative advantage of what they produce, and each party benefits from the trade. Both countries have a high supply of one resource and a lower supply of another, so it works when both nations want more of the other's resources. This is where the beautiful concept of trade comes alive.
In the currency market, supply and demand is also alive and well. When one currency goes up, we can assume that demand is increasing and supply is therefore decreasing. The same concept occurs when a currency goes down.
There are external factors affecting the currency market and its subsequent supply and demand. Things like rate statements and inflation dramatically affect the supply and demand within the markets. When rates go up, it causes money to become more expensive. The reason for this stems from the very fact that if you were to apply for a loan with a higher interest rate, you might be more reluctant to accept that loan because it's more costly than it used to be. When rates go down, money becomes less expensive and loans are more likely to be taken because the rates are attractive or cheap.
So if you are an aspiring currency or Forex trader, you must be aware of where the country's interest rates are at the moment and, more importantly, where they're going. With this understanding of supply and demand, you'll be much more equipped and better prepared to tackle the world of the global financial market.
Be sure to like and subscribe below, and we'll catch you in the next video.